back to Connecting the Dots. Today's episode is all about the engine of growth, retention, what kills it and what nurtures it. With me, I have Anna Olofsson. Anna leads marketing for Wolt across Sweden and Finland. Two very different markets. One where they're basically already a default, and the other one where they're still in growth mode. Together with Anna, we have Pia Jacobson. Pia leads everything app marketing at Precis and helps our clients create retention strategies that actually perform. Really happy to have you here, both of you. So, well, Anna, you have incredible experience in leading global marketing teams, and you've been at Storytel, Skin City, and now at Wolt. Mm-hmm. And Pia is our guru for everything apps and subscriptions here at Precis. So I'm really happy for you to meet. I'm really interested to know what I'm going to learn from this conversation. So the first question is a little bit more like an icebreaker, and is, besides Wolt, of course, what is the app that you never delete from your phone?
That's a good question. And I think that what comes quickly into my mind is Duolingo. And that's an app that I use daily, or I have used it for 158 days today.
Wow.
And I have been teaming up together with my son. So I'm learning Italian and my son is learning the German language, and we are a team together. And I think that the app and the whole experience, how they get me back to the app is incredibly nicely built. And it's all about the gamification, the team up, the social aspect. I think that's one of those apps that I'm totally hooked at.
Okay,
so
nice.
Let's see how many days more, but I'm paying for the subscription now, so they've done something right.
Nice. And also nice that you're learning our languages, like your family is in our language.
Exactly.
Nice.
Exactly.
Very cool.
Pia, what about you?
I never really got into Duolingo. Unfortunately, I tried Italian a few times, but I never got beyond like pane or some, bread or something, but at least it's something, right? I never delete my news apps. I do delete social media frequently to kind of go through a social media detox, which is really good for mental health, but it's news apps that I never delete. And I read them. I have German, British, Swedish news, so I really know what's going on everywhere.
Nice, okay. I don't think I have an app that I would never delete. I've deleted many social media apps from here and there. I actually have an app for, I'm into like this baking project. So I have an app that is like, is used to check if your sourdough starter is at the right level. Yeah, it's very nerdy stuff. I don't think I'm going to do it forever though.
Wow.
Okay, but back to the topic for today. We know that acquisition gets a lot of love from marketers when it comes to app and subscription businesses. But we also know that the true value is in retention and building life cycles that keep the customer coming back again and again. What do you think, Anna? You've been working in different verticals and different companies that have, of course, different products. But what do you think is that element is like make it or break it to create that customer experience that gives value in the long term?
That's a good question, and a most valuable one, I would say, for all companies. Looking from the bigger perspective, of course, customer lifetime value is not only built by marketing team. It's of course built by the product, and it's built by the experience, and that is of course the effort of all other departments where there is an app and a product. It needs to become part of the lifetime value. Like when we at marketing drive in the customers, we of course look at how and which kind of customers we want to drive in to be able to then also have an estimate on if these are valuable customers or not. And it's pretty easy to drive in customers that are the so-called bargain hunters that come in with high discounts but are likely to be less loyal than the ones that you actually first nurture with communication, a bit longer time to engage with them, to build a value proposition, and to make them understand why to choose you and your service instead of the other. And then, of course, the first seconds, minutes, and hours that the customer spends in your product are the most crucial ones. So From the marketing point of view, when we run a campaign or build something externally, we see that it also, of course, needs to continue in the app. So when you as a customer open the app, you want to see the similar thing that you just saw externally.
Yeah.
And then you want, of course, the customer to react and take action there and then directly. Because otherwise it might forget that they downloaded the app. They might forget why they did it. And in the worst case, if they come through an offer, they make the purchase and next time they choose someone else because they didn't actually get anything else additional than the discount.
Yeah, makes sense. In the different companies that you worked for, would you say that there's some elements that kept repeating and something that you need to establish, like the value proposition, for example, is something that you need to establish regardless of the vertical, regardless of the product that you're selling, as well as like the experience, like the customer experience being aligned off app and in app as well.
Yeah. The crucial thing is, of course, when we build in marketing, we build the brand perception and the value proposition, that it really is aligned with the experience. Yeah. That's the starting point for the great lifetime value. It doesn't make any sense that we in marketing build something great, even spend dollars on it and tell a value proposition and build the expectation that is not then actually delivered in the app when the customer comes in. So that's really important, of course, from that point of view.
Pia, like my question to you is that you see a lot of different clients from different industries, right? In the app vertical. Is that often the case that connection is there between the experience outside the app and then the experience on the app? Or is it something that brands still needs to work on?
I think that is definitely something brands still need to work on. Often we think in silos, right? Marketing brings in the consumers, product takes them over, instead of ensuring that they actually work together. Because only if marketing hands over a client to kind of like the open arms of the product, only then it can work, right? If the first time user experience isn't right, then we've lost the user right there. In terms of good life cycle strategies, we really need to look at consent as an opportunity rather than a burden. Yep. No one likes consent, and I get that, right? But it is an opener to reactivating users later on. And I've seen it more than once that brands try to sneak in like a marketing consent checkbox somewhere, but that is not how it works. Like consumers see that, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
So in the end, yes, I mean, product and marketing need to work hand in hand in order for it to make the most sense and work the best and make sure that users come back.
And we talked also a little bit about this when we had our prep call, the consent piece, and was the first good step to create a life cycle, right? And I remember we discussed consent and data. What's your experience there? Like how companies such as Wolt or other companies that you work for had built that consent, especially now where, you know, that is absolutely needed?
All companies should have already 3 or 4 years ago come up with their first party data strategy to really manage this situation that we have today. Because today we really let the customers choose instead of us expecting that every single customer wants a personalized communication from our side. That's the starting point for the longer lifetime value, because the more personalized the communication is, the more relevant the experience is, the longer the customers stay, because then you're really adding a value for the customer. If you don't get that consent and get that opt-in from that customer, you're not able to send out push notifications, no CRM, no SMS. And then you start to rely again on the external media. And this is not that you shouldn't also rely on external media when trying to reactivate the customers, because it's always seen in data as well that if you have a great customer base and you only believe that it's CRM that will drive the growth, you probably will get it wrong, because you also need to invest in the external media to remind that you exist. But still, like the current customer base, you might have millions of customers, only a portion opting in. You need to create a strategy on how to do it. How can you get the customers to want to get personalized and valuable communication from you? And that is something that many companies struggle with. And it's hard to come afterwards and ask for the consent, because customers, like you, Pia, said, they have started to actually not want any communication. For marketeers, it starts to become a huge challenge. Okay, how can I really build the high lifetime value or the valuable journey for the customer so that they stay and come back and make a purchase time after time if you can't be relevant for them? So really focusing on the first party data and also like how to capture the data points that will help you to be relevant is super key.
And you said most companies should have started that 3 and 5 years ago, and optimistically maybe that's the case, but what do you think, Pia? Is that what you see? And what would you say what a company should do if they have been a bit late and now they feel like they need to get that consent from customers? What are ways to do that late in the game, let's say?
Yeah, that's a really good question. One way of getting consent afterwards is to incentivize users by saying you'll get the 10% discount code if you sign up for our newsletter or so. And usually newsletter doesn't just mean newsletter consent, but also like Anna, like you mentioned, it's the push notifications, it might be SMS and so on. The other day, I actually received a discount code via mail, like snail mail in my physical mailbox, which I thought was actually really smart and cool, especially since it's a physical product that I receive, but I only buy online and not in a physical store. So I thought it was very cool. But in the end, it's reminding users and incentivizing them, reminding them that you're there and that there is relevant communication coming if they opt in. We do see quite often that brands incentivize their website visitors or app visitors by offering them a discount code for marketing.
Makes sense. So incentives is a good way to get that consent even in a late stage, let's say.
We do need to pay attention that we don't just activate those that are after discounts, right? Yeah. We want the brand and the product to be what drives the value, not the discount. So that is something that we need to pay attention to.
And that's something, Anna, you also said before. You have those customers that are only looking for discounts. And what I was thinking is when you're building a business, like a subscription business, app business, you might have good customers. Let's call them good customers. The one that create value over time, and then maybe the bad customers. Can you tell us a little bit about how do you look at those, for example, at Wolt or in your previous experience? What does identify a good customer and what is instead a bad customer?
First of all, when you get the growth targets for one country or for one specific company, you start to look at, okay, how much do I have customers in my current customer base and how do they behave? How often do they come? How big average order value they have? And when did they purchase last time? So it can be a repeat rate as one indicator for the times they come back, but also then when they latest purchased. And based on that data, you can start to look like, okay, do I have good quality customers in my database or will I see a huge risk of churn soon? And based on that, of course, start to calculate what kind of value does that customer base actually have, and does that take me to those growth targets that I have? Probably not in the growth cases and in the growth companies. And then we start to understand, okay, we need to acquire new customers. And we likely don't want to get those bargain hunters due to the fact that those bargain hunters will probably come and make one purchase and leave, or then they might come back again when you have a discount, but they have never actually understood the value proposition and they are actually not even interested in those. Yeah. And that's when it comes to this part that you need to start to invest in marketing to be able to nurture and to build these qualified customers. So you need to start to build a need towards them that then also builds the value proposition and brand equity that then turns into a long a lifetime value of customers. Because in best case scenario, you want to get in thousands of good quality customers, but that will take a bit more time than that you just put the short-term discount on, get thousands of customers in, and they will likely come there once, and then looking at the data, again, you have the gap towards the growth targets. You need to again acquire these back. So in that sense, the churn is always much higher.
Makes sense. I guess, though, that there are many companies that are still using discounts quite heavily with maybe more of a short-term outlook on things. Pia, do you have any experience in, how would you, let's say a client of ours comes to you, is like, we've been using discount quite heavily, but we want to get out of that loop. What would you recommend them to do?
Well, they do need to understand that discounts, they drive volumes, like Anna said, but not loyal users. So with discounts, we always have to reinvest into the users coming back. And that means that the return on ad spend is actually quite low compared to if we actually manage to convince our clients to invest into brand, which means it is a true commitment, brand building, right? Bringing the value of the brand to the forefront rather than the value of the discount. So it's really about resetting expectations. Where do we want to go and how long are we able to invest? How long can we stay calm and trust that brand marketing actually works?
Like you need to invest, or you need to change your mindset and understand that you need to invest in brand. And that's also quite interesting, something that you said at the beginning. In your experience, has ever happened to you that you had to make a strong case for brand building within the organization? How did that work? Who did you have to talk to? What did you have to say to convince them?
I think the key to success in this part, to be able to manage like the figures in the Excel files compared to the share of marketing spend of the total revenue, you need to, of course, get the whole leadership team on board, and especially the CFO. That's super important because otherwise it's so easy to cut the budgets in short term and expect great growth. Of course, every company has their targets and we need to reach them. But then again, if you have this patience and understanding that this investment that I make today, it will actually decrease our CAC and CPA in the future, because then we have customers that we have nurtured in the awareness phase as well as in the consideration phase. And then we can start to convert them into loyal customers instead of pushing the discount on, which actually also costs, as well as then driving, like you said, bad quality customers, so to say. They're just looking, where is the best deal? Where can I find the most cheapest thing? And in the longer run, the company loses more money because you need to do it every year. You need to always fill in the bucket with the customers to be able to reach your goals.
I'm really interested to understand, specifically in the delivery business, how much are customers sensitive to price? How much do they actually swap between apps? Is it a lot, or can you actually build that loyalty over time to a brand?
Yeah, I think that for example at Wolt, where the app is super good when you open it, how you see the offers, we have restaurants, we have groceries, we have retail, you find them quickly, the journey to the cashier is super smooth. You also get great expectations on the timing when the delivery comes to your home. And then we have the best customer service to serve you if you don't get the offer or the delivery home in your time, during the time that you were expecting it. And that means that the customers get such a great experience from using our app that they actually want to come back. You start to build the lifetime value, and you start to see that the retention grows and even the repeat rate, because then the customers come back.
Makes sense.
One of the questions that you might ask, if we are seeing more clients shift spend towards upper funnel, especially when it's so difficult to track, we do still actually see that there is a lot of lower funnel investment because it is so provable, right? We have an immediate effect. We turn on a campaign, we see app installs right away, but we don't see how loyal they are. Whereas we do know, but it's much harder to prove the value of brand investment to bring in those valuable, loyal customers that know about the app that you mentioned, Anna. So we do see a lot of investment going to lower funnel, but we do need to invest upper funnel to keep the funnel wide, because in the end, we're going to have fished all the fish out of the sea. And then there are no fishes because no one ever thought about breeding the fishes.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that. Of course, like there is still an over investment or like a strong focus on performance, because that's something that you can easily, I guess, see the results of. And that's a little bit in every industry, right? from B2B to B2C. But I'm interested when it comes to the app space, then what would you recommend is a good way or a good method or tools for marketers to actually prove the brand as well? There are many ways to evaluate that too, but if there's something that you feel like is more suited to for apps.
It is always very valuable, regardless actually of if it's app or not, to look at the split between paid traffic and organic traffic, because we do know even organic traffic has a source. No one wakes up and just thinks about that they want a certain
Wolt.
something, right? That they want Wolt or so. Like even the thought about Wolt comes from somewhere. So we do know if organic is increasing compared to paid traffic, or if paid traffic is actually getting cheaper per conversion, that the value of brand traffic is actually proving itself and is kicking in. We can see the value of brand investment quite easily, for example, on the App Store when we run Apple Search Ads campaigns. Because in the reports, we have a KPI called Search Terms Impression Share, and it comes in 10 percentile steps, so 0 to 10%, 21 to 30, and so on and so on. And that means that we can calculate how many searches there were, for example, for a certain product or a certain brand. And that we can see when the amount of searches increases, that the value of brand traffic kicked in, because there is a much higher intent and there's a much higher interest.
So jumping a little bit back to something that we have a bit touched upon is that obviously that life cycle is not just created by marketing. Like marketing is making a promise, and then ideally that promise is met in the app. But then there's also, as you said, the customer service. I mean, that's a great leverage. How do you keep all of these elements aligned? How do you make sure that you create that experience where so many areas and I guess teams and people are involved? Can you share a little bit about how you're doing it now at Wolt, for example, or maybe in other companies?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, and it's really complex how everything behind the scenes, what happens before the campaign really goes live, or before a product launch happens. And of course, all the key stakeholders on all departments need to be aligned. If there's a price reduction or a price increase, or if there is a new function in the app, or if we just run burger weeks, which means that all other departments needs to be ready, including also product that needs to be ready to take in more traffic. And this was funny when my mother was here a couple of weeks ago, and I was working from home, and she was just there around in the house and listening to me and waiting that when I will end my day. And after 8 hours, when I had been talking 8 hours in different meetings, she said to me that, "What are you doing as work? Because you're all the time just talking. What is your agenda?" And I said the agenda is to keep everyone up to date and align, and also take meetings to really get everyone on board on the same agenda and to understand what's happening when, and then to inspire the team to understand why are we running this fast, and then to let the customer service know that this is the offer, and probably there will come some calls and you need to manage them this way. And there's several stakeholders, and that comes all the way from the global marketing teams to the regional marketing teams and then the local marketing teams. And we are many people who need to be aligned to offer the customers the best experience possible. And that is really because marketing can't work in a silo themselves and then just to think that everything else will just be smooth when the customer comes in. Everyone needs to be prepared for that.
Okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about something that is a bit unique to you personally and also professionally, which is you are Finnish and you are now heading marketing for Finland and Sweden for Wolt, and they're very different markets, right? I mean, in Finland, Wolt has very strong position, and Sweden is a bit more of a newer market. How do you manage that? And, what are the expectations that you have? How do you manage those when it comes to retention and acquisition in a market like Sweden, where you have launched fairly recently compared to Finland, for example?
Yeah, that's a good question, and Wolt in Finland is like part of almost every Finnish person's everyday life. People order lunches, they order dinner, they do their grocery shopping, and even order from our retail partners. Of course, we take learnings from the Finnish market to the Swedish market, what has worked well, and so on. But actually, what we see is that we need to be locally relevant, and that means that we can't often copy-paste something. Yeah. These countries actually differ a lot, and it's super cool that they are in different phases, because then you can really see how we move in Sweden and what happens in the Finnish market, when do we come closer to the Finnish market, and so on. But still, as I mentioned, like Wolt being part of everyday life in Finland, everyone uses a word in Finnish that means that they use Wolt. That
okay, what's the word?
Voltaus.
And like swish, swish someone.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And that doesn't exist in Sweden in the same manner yet. So that will be the next phase. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And I guess launching in a new market, you also get to see things that are fairly different from one market to the other. Is there anything between Finland or Sweden or other countries that you launched in that you'd say, oh, I have been surprised by that element being so local to this specific market, for example?
I've been working with all Nordic countries, and one must think that we could just apply the same strategy in all countries and it would fly. And I have seen this in several different companies, that of course the core brand, the look and feel, the sense of the brand needs to be the same. It needs to be coherent, because you are traveling in different countries, you utilize different apps, you see communication, it needs to be aligned, the red thread needs to be there. But the more you go towards the engagement part, and building the local relevance and meeting the customers, for example, the Finnish people compared to the Swedish people or the Norwegian, not all jokes work between all these three countries. And what I have learned is that you really need to still keep the local relevance, so that you meet the customer from the right angle with the right message, that also then helps to convert these customers. And if you just put the same blanket approach on all markets, you will quickly see that blanket approach leaves missed opportunities that you could have just by investing a bit more into the local relevance, you could have captured.
I like that. I'm also thinking, being Italian, the difference between, jokes that would work in Italy compared to the Nordics, right?
Yeah.
Very different. And Pia, what do you think? You also have the element of, being German. What could be other elements when you launch in a new country that you need to take into account?
I think there are 3. Actually, localization is super important, and it's not just about jokes, but like general translation. Don't go into every market with just English copy on everything. But we've talked about personalization, right? Ensure that you meet the customers where they are. And many markets are actually very proud of their own language. So ensure that you translate and that it's high quality translations, not just AI translations. Payment methods. Being German, I can say credit cards aren't always the top payment method for every German, but ensure that you, for example, offer PayPal or other types of, Apple Pay can also be charged through those cards that you can buy at gas stations and so on. The third one is account creations. So not everyone might have a Facebook account. So maybe don't offer a social login when you in the account creation process, but like a manual and then email. But in some markets, there are very specific email providers. In Germany, it was GMX, which a lot of people used. So their Gmail might not have flown. Now that is 10 years back. It looks a bit different now as well, right? But in the end, it's really those 3. High quality translations to meet consumers where they are. Payment methods, because if someone has everything in their basket, but then they don't find a payment method that they trust, they're just going to stop and go to a competitor. And the third one is really how, and that goes back to consent and CRM and so on again, allow them to easily create an account. Account creation should be as frictionless as possible so that you can actually let the consumer focus on the value that your product brings so that they then can bring value to you.
Nice. You said it at the beginning a little bit, but I think that's very nice when you kind of break down the process of, how you look at in the market. You look at both acquisition and retention. So you look at the potential of the market and so on. So my question is, in a market that needs both acquisition and retention. Like Sweden, for example, you're focusing on acquire customers, but obviously you want to acquire the good customers, right? And you also want to build that acquisition for retention. That's important. How do you balance that? How do you look at it?
I would say that there's no compromise. You should really build a 360 communication concept for the market that fits the market and that you can utilize throughout the customer journey and throughout the full funnel marketing approach. And when I say full funnel, I mean also like offline channels attached to the online channels. And then that communication continues in the app. You can reach users that are utilizing the upper part of the funnel channels, which I mean like outdoor or linear TV or video on demand, where you have the communication, where you just tell what your brand is. And then next phase is the engagement part, where you probably will utilize like influencers, UGC, where you show really how your product fits the everyday life so that people understand, it's more than just restaurants or discounts or something else. This will help my everyday life. In the customer's mind, you remind them what they saw in the upper part of the funnel. And here you start to see that maybe the CPA goes down. It's the last click part of the funnel, but you always need to remember that the middle and the highest part of the funnel really were there to help the conversion. And I would not give up on these two others, because that is really where you build the long lifetime value and invest in market. Like you see that marketing is actually investment in midterm and in long term.
And would you say there's a difference in that funnel investments when you're looking at a mature market or a growth market? Where does it tend to be more heavy?
We should not think that when it's a mature market, then it's ready. We just believe that the customer base continues coming back. You need to be there to remind and to continue building the narrative of your brand and being there just to increase that people remember you and have you on the top of your mind. But in the market, like where you need to grow, you need to actually push to all parts of the funnel. And that's maybe where the challenge comes.
Makes sense. Okay. Is there anything in your career that you're proud of that you just want to share? Like some examples of, good things or good initiatives that really worked to create that special experience or to establish the value proposition?
I think one brand or one like business that I was super proud of being part of was Skin City. When I worked there as a CMO, was that we had a extra added value proposition, and that was that we gave our new customers the possibility to really get service from educated skin therapists. And that was something that within beauty industry back in those days was actually something that not everyone had. And it created this extra value for the customer. You really got the recommendations on the products that suited you and your skin. And when you get this experience and you get the products home, you test them, and after a while you see that they work. It creates loyalty. And that was how many customers, they were also proud of being part of Skin City's customers due to the fact that they got this service. And I think that that's something that really made us proud within the company, that we gave additional value that was for free. That made the customers loyal and also really created a great customer experience. And we saw it in the NPS scores and everywhere that the customers were really satisfied and happy.
Nice. Well done.
Yeah. And I can't take the creds.
Of course. The entire team and company, of course.
Yeah. And the founder and her idea. Super great.
Nice. Then I think if I have to wrap up what I've learned today, quite a lot. But I think what is staying with me is, one, you need to have a value proposition, and that needs to be clear. And I really like how, you shape that and how clear that is, for example, for Wolt in Finland, and how that needs to be translated in a localized way in a new market. And PF, what you said about there are different things that you need to look at when you launch in a new market that are very specific to this industry as well. So localization in the broader sense is really important. And then I really like the idea of looking at discount as a tool, a medium to something, and making sure that you really invest on your best customers, even though that requires a little bit of a challenging conversation internally, maybe with your CFO or with other part of the marketing. And then probably to be a successful marketeer, you need to spend a lot of time in meetings. I think that's true for every industry, and talk a lot to other people to align them. Last question, fire round. So quick answer. What's something that make you delete an app right away?
Long loading times. If the app doesn't load, or if the screens don't load, if it's like not connected to the experience, the expectation that I had, that is going to be a no-go for me.
Okay. For you, Anna?
Spamming pop-ups and emails, and that you can't actually use the app because it's filled with I don't know what, they are trying to make me do something. I'm like, goodbye, leave the app. It needs to be super clear, simple, easy to use, not this pop-ups all the time. Yeah,
like that. For you, Pia, what's a tiny life cycle tweak that you love?
Streamlining communication from ad to landing page to in-app experience to the newsletters that come then. The more streamlined it is, the more personalized it feels, and the more of a difference it can make. So that is one. But then also like always questioning every step of the user experience, because every step has something that we can tweak that can actually be improved. And then you have this compound interest where all of a sudden you have a 20% higher retention rate or so. So it's really always questioning what we know and always wondering if there isn't a way to do it better for the consumers, but also for us, right? We do have a value proposition to the users, but they also have a value to us. And that is not always primarily financial, but sometimes it comes in data, right? They provide their data to us because they know that they're getting something in return.
Good. Well, thank you both so much for being here with me today, and I hope you had a little bit of fun. And it was a nice chat. I learned a lot, but it's also very international vibe, which I really liked.